breaking down the latest sports news in ASU athletics and the professional sports realm. It's 6:30 p.m. and this is Bottom of the Sixth on Blaze Radio.
Hey guys, and welcome to tonight's show. It is top of the sixth.
Top of the sixth.
Top of the sixth here. I am Adam Noel, joined by Jackson Nelson. We are without our producer today, Nicholas Welter.
I miss him.
Is busy, so it's just going to be the two of us.
California.
Fun.
Yeah.
Get home early for Thanksgiving break.
A little envious, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. I go back home tomorrow night at 11:30 p.m. Nice little late flight for me. So
we'll head back to New Mexico.
Yep. What about you?
Going back to the frozen tundra that is Minneapolis. I love the people there. I love everything about it except for winter. But I got to get used to it.
Exactly. So we got a good sports weekend, a good sports week, a lot of stuff going on. How about we start with
ASU football?
Let's do it. All right. So biggest game, I would say, of the year, easily.
Oh, this week against U of A?
Yeah.
It's huge. I mean, last week was a good win for ASU just strictly on the fact that they got bowl eligibility.
Yep.
I think that's bigger than that. I think right now that's their biggest win because they didn't make a bowl game last year. They could have had some of these good upsets, but if ASU would have fallen versus Oregon State and U of A, those big wins versus Washington and Oregon don't mean anything.
Exactly. I think just getting a deserved victory. It should have been a win, and it was a win. Oregon State's not a good team.
Not at all.
I mean, it was there at their house in Corvallis, and
and it was 40-24, which really doesn't look like the biggest win, but if you watch the game, it was not really close at all. It was 30-0 at one point, right?
It was
30-7?
Yeah, 30-0 and then 30-7. Yeah, it was a big win. All the way, it looked like they were going to win the game. Fast start, offense looked good, defense played well. I mean, when it gets to that point later in the game, I mean, what can you do? You just let them score these kind of garbage time touchdowns, and it makes the score look a little more respectable. But I think that the biggest thing is momentum going into next week's game. And this is the week. Big rivalry.
If you're Todd Graham, I don't think you're getting much sleep this week.
Nope.
All I would be doing is eating, sleeping, and breathing University of Arizona football and looking at all the tape from this year. We know last year they didn't throw many passes versus ASU because they didn't need to. They were running all over them. And their offense works the same this year. Yep. So if ASU wants any legitimate chance of coming in and winning this game, they're going to have to shut down Rich Rod's offense.
Yeah, definitely.
Khalil Tate's been running all over everybody, but you have to step up. If you want your job and these players want to play in a better bowl game than the Poulan Weed Eater Bowl, you gotta win this seventh game. This is a monster game for Todd Graham and for the program going forward.
No, easily. You look at Khalil's stats on the year. He has 1,300 yards rushing, 1,100 yards passing. He has 9 touchdowns through the air and 11 on the ground. This offense is 95% run.
And that's why he's found himself in the Heisman contention, even though he hasn't played the entire season. It's because he's putting up ridiculous numbers for a Power 5 conference team. ASU, they've looked good in the run game last week.
Yeah,
Demario Richard and Kalen Ballage both in over 100 yards rushing.
Good weeks.
Demario Richard had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He's becoming a very good running back, but they also are going to need more production from Manny Wilkins. He threw well. He's over 60% completion percentage, but only threw for 160-something yards, a couple touchdowns. But I loved the offense they were running earlier this year when they were taking big shots down the field to N'Keal Harry.
Yeah,
every single time they're running a man-on-man defense with him, you should throw him the ball. He's going to get the ball over every single corner you'll see this year.
Exactly.
He's the best. I think he's top 5 wide receiver in college football, if not the best.
I'd agree with that, and you look at Manny, and he hasn't made a lot of mistakes this year. That's a big thing that came down to a lot of these close games. And I was looking at the matchup predictor here on ESPN on who they think will win this game, and it's actually 49.6% for Arizona, 50.4% for ASU. So it's right in the middle.
It's a little hometown bias. I found that ESPN win projector is very biased to the home team. So, with that being said, if this game were just to be in a neutral site, let's say they put him in Dallas, because every neutral game's at AT&T Stadium.
That's a beautiful stadium.
It's a beautiful stadium, but I'm tired of hearing about it, and I'm tired of hearing about the Cowboys. But that's beside the point. If the game was in a neutral site, I believe U of A would be a heavy favorite.
Okay.
Not just a favorite, but a heavy favorite, because the way they've been playing. And if you know anything about these two teams, ASU has not been able to stop that kind of run offense where it's just run after run after run. They don't get any breaks.
I think, but the thing that makes this game more closer is the last 3 weeks for Arizona. They lost 2 out of the 3, and they got smashed by Oregon. We beat Oregon. I'm not saying that like it means the same thing at different points in the season, but we beat Oregon, and Arizona lost by 20 to Oregon. So it's kind of a hit to the face, and now they're kind of trying to.
I think
get
it's exactly
back
what
into
you're
it.
saying is U of A just ran into a hot Oregon team. Oregon ran into a hot ASU team.
Okay.
There was no flukes there, I think, with ASU because they came in and beat Washington later in the season.
Yeah.
So I think at that point of the season, ASU was really hot, and Oregon just happened to be hot last week, which made Arizona look bad. But I still think this is a great football team, and when your quarterback is also your leading rusher, it's hard to comprehend how to stop one of those offenses, because if his run game slows down, you can go ahead and just try to work on the pass. But when you have both that he does, I'm not gonna say he's a dominant passer, but he does a really good job at just making the easy passes. When he goes downfield, his interceptions go way up. So if Rich Rod has a little intuition, their offensive coordinator's got a little intuition, just do the little check down passes and run the Navy offense that they've essentially been doing this whole season.
I think that what ASU needs to do is look at the blueprint Oregon used. I know they're not the same team at all.
Yeah, they're different teams.
But they contained Khalil Tate. He only had 32 yards rushing on 14 attempts. That's like 2 yards a rush, and that's exactly what you do to stop this Arizona offense.
And it goes without saying, if you shut down Tate, you shut down Arizona, because their defense isn't anything to really write home about. They give up more points a game than ASU does.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've seen the season
on and off.
ASU's defense has not been the greatest. They're not consistent. They've had a couple of shining games versus Washington. I think that's obviously the statement game of the year. But what have you done for me? What have you done for me lately?
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't look good against UCLA. They looked atrocious against UCLA. And still, you're giving up 24 points to Oregon State. I don't think it's acceptable.
I don't know. This is gonna be a tough one.
So right now, where are you leaning?
Okay, I'm gonna lean ASU's way. I don't want to sound biased, but at the same time, I think in terms of what this season has come down to, this is the game where the win against Washington and the win against Oregon, this needs to be one of those games. It just needs to be one of the ones where they
just step up.
Yeah, exactly. Just step up, just finish the year strong and punch U of A in the face. Like, just get this game over with, and beating U of A would look good, especially on a bowl resume. That's going to be another big one. And I'm not saying a 6-6 season's bad, but a 7-5 season's
a lot better.
Pretty good.
The more wins you can get, the better. I'd love to say ASU is going to win this game with 100% confidence.
Yeah.
Because historically in these matchups, if you're the home team, you have the edge and you have a better chance of winning the game, which we've seen from the last couple of years. But I really do think this U of A offense is a completely different animal, even from last year. They run the same kind of offense, but with a different kind of playmaker like Khalil Tate. I really think he's going to run away with this game. I don't believe that ASU's offense will be able to really come back and rally if they don't figure out what their absolute strengths are. And their strengths are just getting the ball to Demario Richard, running. I love the Sparky formation with Kalen Balazs. It seems to have worked really well.
It works on and off.
It works
really
on and off
is.
because they try to use it too much. 2 or 3 times a game in the red zone. It's not a play you're going to gain a bunch of yards with in the middle of the field. And get N'Keal Harry isolated and throw him the ball on one-on-one. If he's on single man coverage, you just have him run a fly and you throw him the ball. If you make a decent throw, he'll go get it. He's one of those type of receivers. For the Pac-12 standards, he's a lot like Calvin Johnson. Okay. He's a big target who can go up and get almost any ball because he just oversizes the opponents on the defense.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna go with, I guess, me towards ASU and you towards.
I'll go U of A.
Okay, that's fair.
Make it a little interesting. How about?
All right. Other news today, we got CFP rankings just came out about 20, 30 minutes ago. So we got Alabama at number 1, Miami at number 2, Clemson went down to 3, and Oklahoma is at number 4. What's your opinion on these rankings?
I mean, obviously, Alabama is still the number 1 team in the country.
Easily.
No
question.
They didn't give us a reason to dispute that. They didn't really have a tough game last week. I'm not going to say Mercer's a garbage opponent, but when you're playing Alabama, you're a garbage opponent. If you're Mercer, you're not the SEC and you're playing them this late in the season. I don't like these little tune-up games before the Iron Bowl. I see what the SEC's doing with these little games that they just throw in. It's not fooling me. I want them to play a good team every week. If you want to play Mercer, play him in your first game of the season. Play him in your second game of the season.
Okay.
This is why they're able to make these good pushes, because you just have a live practice.
That's
essentially what this game versus Mercer was. It's a live practice.
Okay, but big game this weekend, as you said, Iron Bowl. Mm-hmm. Number 1 Alabama versus number 6 Auburn. Yeah. Auburn making some progress. They're 9-2, but they are ahead of Georgia in the CFP rankings. I like what I've seen so far from Auburn, but I think Bama just unstoppable. I don't think they're going to be able to get that. It would be an upset, obviously.
It would be a great story. I mean, with the way Auburn has played this year, yeah, they have 2 losses, but they've had big wins. All of their wins are very good wins, and that's why they're the number 6 team in the country in the college football playoff.
Fair.
If they win this game, I still think it'd be really tough to count them out of the college football playoff, even though they're a 2-win team. The Big 12 always seems to find a way to shoot themselves in the foot with their new conference championship game that they've wanted so badly.
Yeah.
But it's only hurt them.
Yeah,
it would only hurt them in their process of trying to get their teams into the college football playoff.
Definitely.
And it wouldn't surprise me if that happens this year. Oklahoma's a really good football team. Baker Mayfield's a completely different animal. I don't mind at all what Baker Mayfield did last week. I think if I'm a college football coach, if I'm an NFL scout, I want a kid that's got a little bit of moxie, a kid who's got a little swagger to him.
Fire. He's got fire inside of him, and he wants to.
And we've known Baker Mayfield is like that. Are we just going to assume that all college football players are these upstanding citizens that don't yell obscenities at other players during the games?
It's just the college looks at it as a reflection of themselves, and that's why they decided to sit him.
I think that's absolutely ridiculous.
Not being the starter.
I think Lincoln Riley is just soft.
Of him being a captain.
I think that's SAWFT soft by Lincoln Riley.
God.
There's no reason for them to bench him for like that. Because he wanted to hype up his team when he's getting cheap shotted all day by a garbage football team like Kansas.
But why does it matter? Like, it's just
because that's who he is. There's not all players are going to be this kind of just Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers wearing their Wrangler jeans and they got their insurance companies. You got to have guys who got a little bit of swagger.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
I don't want to disrespect Baker Mayfield and call him Johnny Manziel, but you're hearing comparisons between the two because they think Baker Mayfield's a head case.
No,
there's no similarities.
Too far.
Off the field, Baker Mayfield and Johnny Manziel are completely different people.
No way. Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. And I think it was excessive. I agree with you that they shouldn't strip him of being a captain on senior day.
When I was listening to Dave Pash and Greg McElroy, who were on the call, all I was thinking is just how childish they were acting. I can't even compare what they were acting like. They just made it seem like he just mooned the fans, like he just pulled his pants down. All he did was he grabbed his junk. Football players do that.
It was an obscene gesture. That's why everyone freaks out. But
I would be shocked if that doesn't happen all the time in college football. And they got to bleep out what he says. Every single college football player is cursing at every play in college football.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
It's all head games. It's a bunch of young kids who want to get in each other's heads and talk trash. No, that's what college football is.
I think that's fair, and I do think it was too much. I'm just sad for Mayfield, and we saw him talk about it after, and he was disappointed. He was crying.
He was crying.
Yeah. It was his senior day.
He's remorseful. He's not a fool.
It was just a bad mistake.
He knows he was just acting poorly. He had poor judgment. But at the end of the day, you're benching your star quarterback, who's a Heisman hopeful, for a little mistake he made on TV in a blowout game versus Kansas.
And you're the number 4 team in the country.
Riley. Yeah. Really?
Yeah, I don't know.
Good move, bud. I hope Oklahoma loses now.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break here, and we'll come back with some NFL, NBA, maybe a little other stuff depending on what we can get to. You're listening to Top of the Sixth.
Top of the Sixth.
Here on Blaze Radio Online. We'll be back in 60 seconds.
My name is Nick Batters, and I am a certified Jeep and a bona fide stud. And you can't teach that. And if you don't tune in to WWE Weekly every Tuesday from 8 to 9 p.m. on BlazeRadioOnline.com,
there's only one word to describe you, and I am gonna spell it out for you.
bada boom, best show in the room.
How you doing? SAWFT.
Here at Blaze Radio, we'll be there for all your music listening needs. Tune in to BlazeRadioOnline.com, broadcasted live from the Bill Austin Studio in Phoenix.
That's some hype right there.
God, I love a little Johnny Cash.
We are back welcome back to Top of the Sixth here on Blaze Radio Online. We're here in the Bill Austin studio at Arizona State University, and we are going to talk some NFL, Jackson.
Let's do it.
What teams looked good to you this weekend?
I mean, it's hard to say teams like the Vikings didn't look good, or teams like the Saints didn't look good, or teams like the Patriots didn't look good. The Patriots went into Mexico and they thrashed the Raiders. The Raiders, the biggest disappointment to me this year in NFL.
Fair.
There's so much hype around them. They looked really good last year until Derek Carr got hurt.
Just fired
And
defensive coordinator.
Derek Carr comes back. They didn't really lose many pieces. They didn't gain a lot. Their team was very similar to what it was last year, but they just haven't performed. All they did was add beast mode, and they've gotten worse.
Yep.
I don't think it's
pieces just.
I don't know if they're
working.
changing their offense because they got Marshawn Lynch, but there's something about the Raiders I just didn't like. But on the flip side, Tom Brady is still the best quarterback in the National Football League.
Because Aaron Rodgers is injured right now. But
Relax.
I agree with that. As of right now, Brady is number one, but Rodgers, your Vikings took him out.
He's the winner.
Okay.
He's a winner. I think he's the best quarterback because he wins more than anybody. He's got all the rings to prove it. He's got all the records to prove it too.
He's a villain, but he wins.
Oh, I love a villain.
I don't like villains very much.
The villains I don't like are like the New Orleans Saints, who took out my guy Brett Favre during the NFC Championship. But we're not going to dispute that the Saints aren't the hottest team in the NFL. They've won 8 straight. They're two-headed monster. Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram are running roughshod all over the NFL.
Who would think you could get better after cutting Adrian Peterson? Honestly.
Not me. I did not think so.
Yeah, exactly. You're an Adrian Peterson guy.
Purple Jesus.
Yes, you're a Vikings fan. I mean,
and Drew Brees had almost 400 yards passing.
Yep.
He's still
Monster.
Drew Brees. And the Vikings, I think, had a big statement win against the Rams, who are again one of the hottest teams in the NFL, and shut them to 7 points.
Yep. Rams are up there.
The Vikings defense just kind of punched them in the mouth.
Yep.
And Case Keenum is still not giving Teddy Bridgewater a chance because he's out playing.
That's fair. All right. And Bradford's out for the season, so at least they
Bradford
have...
There's
There's
wouldn't
just
even
so
play
many
if he's healthy.
quarterbacks on that team.
But on the flip side, who looked bad?
Okay.
Besides the Raiders.
Bad teams this weekend. I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs, dropping it to the...
100% agree.
dropping a game to the New York Giants. Giants are now 2-8 on the year. They beat the Broncos early in the season.
When is my guy Patrick Mahomes going to be under center now?
God.
Andy Reid, pull the trigger. Get the gunslinger in.
Oh, man. They just did not look good this weekend. Another team that looked bad, Cowboys.
Ugh.
It was a close game. Close game. 3/4 of the game pretty much was back and forth, and then boom.
2 quarters.
Mid third quarter just exploded. Everything just collapsed. Dallas was up 2 points, and then all of a sudden they lose by 28. Just I don't know. I know Elliott's gone, and this offense just needs to perform. They just looked terrible these past couple weeks. Another
But
team
Alfred Morris didn't even look too bad.
Yeah.
There's something wrong when Zeke Elliott's on the field.
Another team that looked bad is I would say my Denver Broncos. They look pretty bad. I mean, they're going to bench Brock finally.
The Brock star.
They're bringing in
ASU.
Paxton Lynch. He's finally healthy, and they're going to have Trevor Siemian back him up. And another team that made a critical mistake that I thought is going to bite them especially this far into the season, is the Buffalo Bills dropping to 5-5. They started Nathan Peterman, who threw 5 interceptions in the first half.
In the first half.
5 interceptions. That's more than
the Bills
8
Mafia.
quarterbacks have thrown all season.
The Bills have kind of just become the lovable losers of the NFL, and I always want something good to happen for the Bills, and they just don't. They don't do anything good.
No, Bills are they're a top 3 team for me. I love the Bills. My dad's a Buffalo Bills fan, actually.
I want to say another team that looked bad was a team that won, and it was last night, the Atlanta Falcons. I think the Atlanta Falcons special teams had one of the worst showings I've ever seen. Every single kickoff they hit to the Seahawks, went to the 40. Lockett returned it at least to the 40. Blair Walsh had a squib kick that went to the 10, and the Falcons muffed it. The only good special teams play they had all day was when Pete Carroll had a boneheaded call trying to fake a field goal at the end of the first half, and Luke Wilson just got crushed.
Yep.
It was a poorly executed play, and that's what eventually gave him the game. If the Atlanta Falcons offense wasn't so good, then they would have been just completely skunked that game. They looked horrible on defense, and they looked god-awful on the special teams.
Seattle's not a bad team, though, when you're saying that. I mean, if they play that bad against
Cam Chancellor
a
and Richard
mid-tier
Sherman are
team,
out, they're not as good as they should.
The defense is not as good, but the offense is
that's
just
where their
as
offense
good.
circles. Their team circles around the defense, like LOB. That's what you think when you think of the Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson is a great quarterback, and he gets out of every single he gets out of the pocket every time because their offensive line is horrible. So he has to make these ridiculous plays just to keep the team afloat. And
he's kept the team afloat
They're
this far.
so lucky they have a quarterback like Russell Wilson because I
Exactly.
don't think any other quarterback in the NFL right now could keep the Seahawks at 6-4.
No,
he's the only
definitely.
quarterback that could have done it.
Yep, I agree with that. And I
As
think
much as it pains me to say that a Badger did a good job.
God, but the Falcons did pull that out, and I liked what I saw offensively from them, and they're a tough team in the NFC. NFC has some good teams.
Julio Jones is a human cheat code.
Yeah.
That man's ridiculous.
Him and Antonio Brown, just a whole nother level.
But the thing I like about them is they're 2 completely different receivers.
Yeah.
Antonio Brown is the best at getting yards after catch of any wide receiver, and Julio Jones will catch every single ball and do his little tiptoes
Jones is
in
a
bounds.
big receiver too. Antonio Brown's kind of a
He's
smaller guy.
5'11".
Yeah, he's just fast.
But
beautiful.
when you
cuts,
hit him on you hit him
everything.
on a crossing route, he's very hard to get.
Just gone. Absolutely incredible. Great weekend for NFL this past weekend, and kind of we just talked about bad and good teams, and we can move on a little bit. How about we hit some college basketball? I know how much you like college
hoops.
basketball.
It's back.
It is
Everybody
back.
loves college hoops.
And you know who's number one? Duke Blue
The
Devils.
Dukies with senior Grayson Allen. I'm a big Grayson Allen guy. I don't care that he's a little punk.
I do like Grayson
I
Allen.
love the villains. There's something about it. Like Christian Laettner. Love Christian Laettner. I feel like every phenom for the Duke Blue Devils is always just vilified because he plays for Duke. Even if he's not just a bad guy. Like, yeah, Grayson Allen trips guys. Yeah,
he has his
you're
mess
right.
up.
He's got his moments, but he's a great basketball player when it comes down to it.
Okay.
He's always been, since he stepped onto the floor for Duke the first time, he's always been told that he's the most athletic guy on the floor, and that's true. He's the best three-point shooter on that team, and he is the highest vertical on that team. He can jump out of the gym. If you look at Grayson Allen if he's just a guy walking down the street, you think he could graze the net. But when you get on the basketball floor and he jumps and his head almost hits the rim, it's freakish to watch. And that's why I think he's performing so well this season in college basketball. And that's why Duke's number 1.
Yep. And speaking of number 1, we got our number 1 prospect, maybe number 2. We can say Bagley.
I think you go number 1.
Yeah, I would say Michael Porter Jr. is number 1. He was announced today that he will miss the rest of the season for Missouri due to a back surgery because he is going to have for his lower spinal, the discs.
Yeah, the discs. It wasn't even like a disc slip. I remember reading it and I shuddered. It was just like, ugh. Like it sounded bad. I don't know how much this is going to affect his draft stock. I think this could end up being kind of like a Kyrie Irving thing where you get hurt, you don't play, you play 2 or 3 games in the season, which he played 2 or 3 games. Kyrie Irving's on the back end where he played the tournament. But I don't know how much it's going to affect his stock because there's been so much publicity around MPJ. He was so good in high school. Yep. And these scouts, if he's healthy, because this is not a year-long injury. This is like
3 to 4 months.
About 3 to 4 months. So
it's the full basketball season, though.
Yeah, legitimately, there's probably no way he could come back this season.
No,
and he's obviously not going to rush.
No,
there's
no
no
way.
reason to rush what he does. He'll be able to make it to these camps for NBA teams, and they'll see that he's still the number 1 pick.
Yeah, that'll be the main thing. His workouts, and if he decides to go to the NBA, I am interested to see what happens. Because
I'd be shocked if he didn't go to the NBA.
I don't know.
I don't know if
It's
he could pull a Miles Bridges.
From what we've seen, he talks about like he doesn't want to be one of those one and done players, but at the same time, his stock is so high and NBA
but
teams
you also
value him
you also
so
have to
highly.
think about. I think there's so many more things that go through players' minds when you see a big paycheck coming at you, and you know that it can be taken away at any second.
No question.
If you go down with a season-ending injury, who's to say it's not going to happen again?
Porter Jr., he probably, I mean, from our perspective, I'd say top 5 pick, and that's a big paycheck, just like you said. And I think in terms of what we've seen with injured players going into the draft and being drafted,
it's the most hit and miss thing ever.
Exactly. It's just so on and off.
And basketball, there's not really a minor league like baseball. There's the G League, but your guys who are in the G League, the guys who are in the G League are not your top tier guys. They're your second round picks and your stash players.
G League players come to the NBA. It really on and off.
Very on and off.
No, but when you're looking for a first round pick, you're not looking for a G League player.
You're not looking for a guy you're going to stash in the
guy
G League.
who goes into your rotation. Definitely. I do think second round picks are more of the G League orientated, but I think Michael Porter Jr., if he's going to go to the NBA, he's going to need to be assured that he's going to be like a top 5, top 10 player.
And that's why the NBA has these tryout camps.
Definitely.
It's because they just want to see if maybe you didn't get the exposure you wanted in college basketball. Maybe you went to a mid-major school. That's why you see guys like C.J. McCollum and Dame Lillard make it to the NBA, because C.J. McCollum went to Lehigh and Dame went to Weber State.
Yep.
You're not getting much exposure there. Because to be honest, before those two guys came out, not sure many people even knew those schools existed.
Yeah.
And they get to these camps and people find out that these are athletic specimens who can do some things that some players just can't. So the exposure that they get from these camps are you can't describe how important it is, especially for a guy like Kyrie Irving, who got injured and has to show out at these camps, and Michael Porter Jr. has to do the same thing.
Yep. All right, let's do a super early. This will wrap up our show here. Super early Final Four for the NCAA tournament. I'm gonna go with I love Duke. I like Kansas. I do like Michigan State. I think that was a kind of a hit and miss right there. And for my fourth one, I will go with, they did lose, but I kind of like Kentucky. They played Kansas, and that was a tough Kansas team. So I'm gonna go with those 4 for my Final Four.
Kentucky's really young. I always have found when I'm watching Kentucky basketball is I always see some guys that are brought back from the year before. This year, there's a lot of new guys. This is the newest roster they've had in a long time. Not a lot of senior leadership really on this team. So I'm not gonna go after Kentucky.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with Duke because they've got Grayson Allen. He's been there before and he can do it again. He's a senior. There's a lot of trust in him now.
Yeah.
Because I think he's matured over the offseason and he's improved his game, which we've seen on the stat sheet. I don't trust Arizona. This is not a biased comment.
Yeah, I don't trust them either.
They don't make big runs in the tournaments. They're gonna have to prove me wrong, and especially with all the animosity and all that's going wrong with them in the offseason, still could be distracting them once it comes to March.
Yep, I agree with that.
So I like Kansas. I like Devontae Graham. He's a really good basketball player. He learned a lot from Frank Mason last year, and I really think he's going to be able to make a big push, which Frank Mason obviously could not do last year.
I like Kansas. I like Kansas a lot. I think they're going to go great season.
I think Michigan State's a good team. It's hard to count a team like Michigan State out, especially with a guy like Miles Bridges, and they've got other good freshmen that are helping him out with that squad of Tom Izzo and East Lansing.
Definitely.
And Villanova.
Okay, there we go.
I really like Villanova because they're another one of those powerhouse college basketball teams like Kansas that can keep their guys until they're seniors.
If only they had Ryan Arcidiacono still. That would just
every team wants a guy like Ryan Arcidiacono. But I want to get who are a couple of sleepers that you have. Who they're not going to maybe not make the Big Four, but they're going to make a big push in the tournament.
I'll give you one sleeper, and I kind of like UNC. I know they're ninth, but I think they could make a good run in the tournament. Who's a sleeper for you?
Again, this could come off as biased.
Wait, time out. just to point out to our audience, you are wearing a Minnesota shirt right now, University of Minnesota shirt. It is a maroon shirt. It does have gold lettering, so it could be confused with an ASU shirt, but it is not. It is a Minnesota shirt. So say what you're going to say right now.
I'm gonna give you two sleepers.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm going to go with the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
Okay.
They have the leading shot blocker in college basketball right now in Reggie Lynch, who's averaging over 5 blocks a game. He was the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year last year, and he's proving again that he's a monster under the rim this year. Jordan Murphy, their power forward, is averaging around 25 and 12, which is absolutely ridiculous. He's got Big Ten Player of the Year numbers. Not to mention that they've got Frank Mason, Nate Mason, a great senior point guard, as well as Jelly, Isaiah Washington, the leader of the Jelly fam, as their sixth-man point guard, who's been playing. He's been playing all right off the bench, but he's going to improve a lot more as the season goes on. But my other sleeper team is the Texas A&M Aggies. I love this team. They got Robert Williams, who could have been a lottery pick last year in the NBA draft, but he decided to stay one more year. He was suspended for the first couple of games this season for off-the-court issues, but he came back and had a huge game in the tournament that A&M's playing in right now. And DJ Hogg. DJ Hogg's he's one of their guards, and he's lights out from three, and he's putting up 20 points a game. I like this whole team. Texas A&M's another team. Yeah. Big conference. They're having some good tests in the regular season, and I think that's going to help them a lot in the long run.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for this week's Top of the Sixth show, and we missed Nicholas this week, but I think Jackson and I did a pretty good job.
Oh,
without our producer. And a big happy Thanksgiving to all of our audience and
happy
everyone
Turkey
around.
Day, y'all.
Have a great Turkey Day, and we will look forward to being on air next Tuesday. All right, keep it here on Blaze Radio Online.
See you.